The electrical life of Louis Wain was okay, but before I get into my review of this Amazon original movie, consider this your spoiler warning because I will be talking spoiler-ish. Now, let's get on to the review. Now, I'm not familiar with Louis Wain's paintings, but he was a famous artist, entrepreneur, among many things, back in the turn of the 18th century, the late 18th century. And this movie is based on a true story. And it was okay. It was weirdly shot. I thought the way they were trying to shoot it. Now, we don't know this about Louis Wain until 2/3 of the movie in, that he's dealing with some kind of schizophrenia or dementia as he's growing older. Hence why in the beginning he's talking about electricity and how he sees, things. Now, we do get early on that he's eccentric. He's very weird, and he has a weird way of going about things, about the way he looks at life. And you get that very early on, but towards the end, we figure out that he sees everything in colors or in kind of visions. And the movie tries to show us that in the way it's shot, in the cinematography of the thing. And in some cases, it works. In other cases, it doesn't. So it's hit and miss when they do that, but they do it throughout the whole entire movie. So when like I said, he's eccentric, but he's also very brilliant. He has these great ideas. He has these great passions. It's just that he's unappreciative or unappreciated by his current era and by those around him. They look at him as being weird, or there's only a select handful that actually see the brilliance of it. And that seems to be true in many geniuses. They're mocked. In the beginning, they're told their dreams are too big, that they can't accomplish them. We could go from Elon Musk to, Facebook, to Google, to Amazon, to the light bulb, to so many people throughout history that have done great and big things. All have that same story where they're ridiculed, they're mocked, and told that they are flying too close to the sun and they're just some nobody from nowhere that can't do anything. And it's a good story in that perspective. Now, when I was getting to know the characters of Louis Wain, we get introduced to his love interest, Emily, played by Claire Foy. And you automatically, if you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory, the first thing I thought, because she's also eccentric, like they get to know each other because Doctor Strange hires a tutor per se, or his sister hires a tutor to teach the kids in the house because he's too busy. He's the man, and in those age, the man took care of the house. So if you were the oldest brother, which in this case he is, he had to take care of his 5 younger sisters, and that duty fell on him. So they hire a tutor, and Emily is that tutor that comes in, and right away you also get a hint that she's also a bit weird, a little bit eccentric, and they kind of fall for each other really early on, which should have been a warning, like, something's gonna happen here with this love story very, very early on. And before I get to that part, I got straight, if you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory, you got Sheldon and Amy Farrah Fowler vibes, because that's exactly what it was. When I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's like just two nerds, two awkward people that find each other, that end up falling in love, and it's a great story. And then bam, freaking Emily ends up getting breast cancer, as they call it, cancer of the breast. And you're like, of course, everything in life, when you find love or when you find happiness, just like, or anything, not even love and happiness, when everything seems like it's going good, how many of us can relate to life just handing us that uppercut and saying, not yet, you're not out of the woods yet, or everything's going fine, and then boom, some kind of car accident or car problems, health problems, or something just always seems to be getting in the way of you getting some traction, getting some motion. And this movie did a really good job in doing that. Every time Lewis wanted to evolve or get ahead in life and felt like everything was going good, something happens and Emily says something, or the line was written for Emily to say that when she gets told about the cancer of the breast, she goes, just when I was starting to enjoy life or enjoy this, she says it, but meaning that life, she found the love of her life and she was enjoying her fairy, fairy tale life now. And all of a sudden, because of no fault of her own, cancer comes in and takes that opportunity away from her. I'm not gonna lie, this movie did choke me up a couple times, just because it does deal with these tropes and real life scenarios that we could all relate to. So it did a very good job in that aspect. And then we just get into though Louis Wain is a brilliant artist and did a lot to bring people joy and change the view, as the movie puts it, in the perspective of cats. Before, cats were looked at as a nuisance, as something that should be discarded, and dogs were all the rage. But because of his paintings and his art and his drawings, people started coming out, because the love for cats was there, has always been there, but he manages to change it and have them more adored. And at the end, we find out through one of his lifelong friends that he's impacted throughout his life, connects with him, because that's just how life is sometimes. Funny how it just works out that way. Someone that you knew and touched like 10-20 years ago, you end up crossing paths and they end up helping you through the finish line. And he thinks he's failed because he failed with his wife, he failed with his sister. He couldn't bring his family out of poverty, he got taken advantage of, like everything was just bad. And at the end of, like I said, a friend of him says, look, you've brought so much joy to people's life, and that's how you've connected with millions of people. But when you're watching this movie, you get the secondhand story. This man just has bad luck. No matter, like I said in the beginning, he takes one step forward and he then gets pushed back 4 or 5 steps. He takes 1-2 steps forward and then gets thrown back 6 steps back. And it's that kind of struggle that this character brings to you, or brings you get the feeling of when you're seeing this. But all in all, it was an okay script. It felt very bland at points, and there was a lot of pausing. They focused more on the weird cinematography and letting the scene breathe, which again, I can respect. In my Eternals review, I did the same thing. I understood what they were trying to do, but sometimes when you're trying to let a scene breathe, it creates a lull in the intensity or in your attention span, and you move away from that. But I got it, but the script was very simplified, very, very bare bones, if you will. Even though Doctor Strange, or Benedict Cumberbatch, to be respectful, did a great job in acting, and I think everyone in the cast did a great job in acting, and they should be commended for such a great acting job all the way around. I didn't think there was one weak chain in that acting wheel. And the de-aging that they did in the beginning, we start off the movie by seeing a Doctor Strange that is like 90 years old, and you're like, wow, they did a great job in making him look 90. It was flawless to me. I was like, that looked like an old, Benedict Cumberbatch right there. Like, just, he looks super, super old. And at the end, we see him age, and they did a great job. So makeup should be also applauded for doing an amazing job in the de-aging, and not just of of Doctor Strange, but everyone, as time passed, they did a great job in letting us see that. And I'll say these last two things to benefit or in detriment. I don't know. Maybe it's because Marvel has been doing what now, 25 movies now and a few shows under the belt. But God knows that every time I see a actor that's been in a Marvel movie, there sure is many others. Like in this one, we had obviously Doctor Strange. Then you had Cork, or Taika Waititi, which is a actor and director. And then you had Toby Jones that plays Zoloft, in the Captain America movies. And they seem to stick together, and maybe it's a brotherhood, but I enjoyed that aspect. Some people might hate it, so it's up to you. And the music was kind of similar to Loki, so I don't know if the person or the director, composer that did Loki did this movie, because it had very similar swells. And every time that kind of instrument comes up, I just think of Loki. Now, some people might think of Star Trek. That's, depending on when you were born. But all in all, I did find this movie enjoyable. Yet, again, there was some pacing issues. The script was very lackluster, very basic. And the way it was, again, shot, the cinematography took me out some. And I get that they were trying to be artistic with it, and they accomplished it to some sort, but it was more distracting than anything. And I will say this in ending, that I appreciate the actor, Benedict Cumberbatch, to do these kind of roles. If for whatever reason he excels in these kind of period pieces, he's done a few actually in this year. He's been a busy actor in 2021. I will tell you that. And he is determined to not get typed as as Doctor Strange or a superhero movie, even though it's kind of hard, because now no matter where I see him, I just think Doctor Strange. So the typecast might have already been there, but I respect his professionalism and his respect on what it means and what it takes to be an actor. And again, my hat's off to him. He did a great performance in this movie, even though the script was a little bit lackluster, but it wasn't because of him or any of the actors in this movie. But anyways, with all that being said, this movie gets a C+ for me. And I just thought it was 50-50 on what it did good, what it did bad. And just like I said, just those long pauses, those long, letting those scenes breathe. It happened too much. And then there was this one scene where he's fighting, and I guess he's having a weird dementia episode, and the camera is all fuzzy and grainy, and this happens for like 2 minutes. And I get the artistic value, but it just takes you out of the movie. And that's like a cardinal sin. You don't want to be taken out of a movie. Once you're in that universe, you want to stay in that universe towards the end. And at the end of the day, it was just a really basic story. So that's why it gets a C+. You guys, some people might think that's too low. Some people might think that's too high. But I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And like always, that's a wrap.